when it comes to vacant land, it's probably vacant for a reason. And a lot of people don't know
Oh,
this.
because the
Like,
seller wants some crazy number.
well, that, and it's because maybe like before, like if it's been vacant for a lot, like its use was when the city, let's say, was, building the infrastructure to, provide like, water and electricity for that area, et cetera. They're like, oh, this is just going to be a freaking stupid parking lot. Like it doesn't need that. Let's save some costs. And like, this thing is not entitled to any water rights or, so I have some people sometimes like, hey, I just bought this land. I'm trying to develop it, et cetera. And I'm like, dude, I just did like, 2 days worth of research and I found out like you don't have any freaking water rights. Like, what does that mean? Like, the city is not gonna like literally, you do not have water.
Mm.
Like,
And
like
there's nothing you could do about that. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of The Report. Today, I am super pumped because I got a special guest, someone who I've personally done a couple projects with, someone who's local here in San Diego, someone who's been out and about in the San Diego real estate investing community for quite some time, doing big things. And most importantly, he's doing stuff in the ADU space, which I feel is probably one of the top two real estate investing plays in 2025 and beyond. I got my man, France Hanna. France, welcome to the show, brother.
honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time coming and overdue podcast, dude. It's great to have you on, man. And I just want to first and foremost say so much respect for you, your game, everything that you're doing, everything that you're providing, real estate investors, especially in the ADU space here in San Diego and across California. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from someone like you.
Appreciate you, man. Anyway, so first things first, dude, lots to cover here. And for the listeners listening, this is probably the top two real estate investing plays in the entire country for 2025 and beyond is this ADU play. We're going to jump into it, rapid fire question, answer, Q&A, and we're going to do a deep dive into ADU investing and give you guys everything that you guys need to know about investing into ADUs. So first and foremost, France, for the folks out there that aren't familiar, what is an ADU? What is the definition, and how did this come about?
Great question, a great place to start because there's still a little misconception regarding what an ADU is. So an ADU obviously stands for an accessory dwelling unit, and it was created based on the ancient concept that already existed, which was building a secondary home on a property like an in-law suite. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that term, or like a granny flat, et cetera. And so basically California is instilled in this, sadly enough, like the issue's only gotten exacerbated recently with the fires. California is facing a major housing crisis. And so, instead of, and a lot of that has to do with, developable land, because you can't just keep building out east. Not a lot of people want to live out there. So, that really like nice developable areas were a lot of it single family homes. And if a state tried to force cities to rezone those lots, it'd be like a government overreach, right? It's up to the city. The city is going to tell the state to, go away. And so the state kind of expanded a little bit on that existing like in-law suite, granny flat, like, legislation that was already there. And it was done in a pretty clever way. And it took a few steps, and they said, well, the lot is zoned for a single family home. What if we're not going to put another single family home on there because that would go against zoning? We're just gonna put an accessory dwelling unit. So you have your main dwelling unit, and then this is the accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
And so, and that doesn't violate zoning because this is only an accessory dwelling unit. Well, what the heck is an accessory dwelling unit? So that, you put some parameters in place, like, okay, the accessory dwelling unit, can be up to like 1,200 square feet. And then you just, it has to be like in this area, et cetera. These are the setback requirements for it. And then you start establishing that definition of an accessory dwelling unit, in which there are some state minimums regarding what your entitlements are for an ADU. And then, but they do leave it up to the city, the local jurisdictions to go beyond that. And so some jurisdictions, they're more pro-housing than others. pro development. And so they might tell you like, your ADU can be like, 2,000, 3,000, square feet, etc. But yeah, basically that's why an ADU exists. And it is intended to be one part of the solution to resolving the housing
The
crisis.
affordable housing crisis.
Correct.
Correct.
Not the main, but one large part.
And it makes sense. I mean, when we talk about affordable housing, I mean, it all comes down to supply and demand fundamentals, right? And, one thing I'll say is, here in California, you got 4 major markets. You got the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego. And if you look at all those markets, San Diego is the one that a lot of people say they call it an island because you're surrounded by Pacific Ocean to the west, Mexican border to the south, mountain ranges to the east, and to the north, you got Camp Pendleton. So from a supply standpoint, there's not a lot of land to build on, right? And so as more people migrate into this area, it's only going to further push pricing upwards. And so what's the solution? The solution is to build more housing units. And, this kind of goes against California politics as a whole because a lot of people view California as a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tapes, a lot of barriers to entry to build. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen real estate come to such a rise. Most consider California a high growth market in terms of long-term appreciation, very low cap rates because of it. But to be able to build additional units in your backyard, and this is not just one, not just two, but in some cases you can take a single family property here in California and especially in San Diego and turn it into multiple units. I mean, I know people that are doing 20, 30, 40 unit build outs. We were just looking at a deal just now, me and you, prior to recording, and you could take a single family property on like a 9,000 square foot lot and build 10 more units in the back and basically making a 10 unit apartment building. It's a big opportunity for the investors out there, but it's also a win for the folks out there that are looking for affordable places to rent. They're looking for affordable, nice places to raise their kids, raise their families, and that sort of thing. So I think it's a big win for California, but specifically in the areas to where it makes the most sense. Now, tell me, can you do this in a lot of markets around the country, or is it mostly specific to California?
So I know California basically stole the legislation, the entire idea, I want to say from Oregon.
Okay.
And then I want to say Colorado also has like ADUs. I'm not sure who came first, Oregon or Colorado. And then I want to say Texas now has some ADU legislation going on over there. So those are the 4 that I know of. But yeah, California, I know very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're listening to this right now and you're like, okay, well, how does it make us money as an investor? Well, if you think about it, land in California, Southern California, very, very expensive. It's not uncommon for a neighborhood in Southern California to comp in terms of the sales comps on a price per square foot basis to be in this $500, $600, even $1,000 per square foot range. And so if you can build for $250 a foot, nice finishes, everything, you're going to be all in for $350 a foot, let's just call it, and the neighborhood comps out at $700 a foot, well, you get to pocket on that delta. So every square foot that you build, you're forcing $350 a foot in this example of forced appreciation. So if you do the math, you build out 2,000, 4,000 square feet, that's a lot of forced appreciation. That's a lot of wealth that you can force. And that gives you a little bit of buffer, a margin for error should the market adjust. We've been in a softening market over the last 30 months. And I've been saying it all along. And this is one of the reasons why we buy boutique hotels that are underperforming and add a lot of value, because that's one way for us to kind of force our equity. But the ADU play is the other way to do it. You can force a lot of equity because you're building in very expensive markets. And this model works best in expensive markets. We were just looking at a deal not too long ago, a little bit inland in San Diego. And not too far inland, but the difference in the amount of forced appreciation in an inland market of San Diego and something right on the coast is a big difference. And so with that particular opportunity, I decided through France's guidance, I'm like, hey, I'm going to pass on this opportunity. Let's go chase something closer to the water.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head right there. That's on a more fundamental level. That's the easiest way to look at the ADU play in terms of looking at a price per square foot. And, you mentioned $500-$600 price per square foot. If you're finding a place for $500-$600 per square foot in San Diego, it's likely like a dilapidated home somewhere. Maybe not in the best like
Neighborhoods.
location. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, if I'm building you a brand new home for $350 a square foot, it's literally the equivalent of a no-brainer right there. And then you can then your exit strategy, like you have so many different options for that. And so yeah, that's the best way
From a macro perspective to look at it. Because if you think about it, as real estate investors, we're all human beings. We all only have the same 24 hours in a day. And so it's like we can only handle so many projects at one time, right? And so why not go and maximize the efficiency of the projects that you can handle on your plate at any given time? And so, whether you're doing a build out in, let's just use like from a super macro perspective, whether you're doing a build out in Oklahoma, right? Oklahoma City, versus La Jolla here in San Diego, which is like probably the one of the more expensive neighborhoods here in San Diego, very luxury, high end, very expensive comps. The time that it takes and the risk that you got to take to manage contractors, to get the lending, to get these things deaded up, to manage the timelines, the change orders, any overages, all those headaches is relatively the same amount of time and cost to build in Oklahoma than it is in La Jolla. But guess what? In La Jolla, you are going to force a lot more appreciation and gain a lot more wealth for you. If you're partnering with investors, you're going to gain a lot more wealth for your investors. And so for me, knowing that I only have the capacity to do so many deals at once, we're already doing a bunch of stuff in the boutique hotel space. It's a goal of mine to do a little bit larger of an ADU project personally here in San Diego this year. And so when I look at it in that light, I'm like, okay, well, I might as well maximize the upside if I'm going to focus all my time. And by the way, if the upside's more, I'm going to put more attention into it.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. That's kind of my thought process, and you validated my thought process. So I want to ask you next, France, what is the biggest risk to the ADU play?
So just last year, 1 in 5 homes built were ADUs. So that's a good statistic to keep in mind, just to show that the space is actually growing. Because you look around, there's a lot of huge developments that are going up, like 300, unit homes, like coming out of like apartment buildings taking over these parking lots, et cetera. There's been a lot of legislation that is allowing for that to occur. There's new legislation now that I think it's SB 6. You can take a commercial space and just freaking convert that entire commercial space almost entirely into like a big apartment building, et cetera. And it makes it less of a hassle to do.
So SB 6 is you could convert, for example, like an old office building that's just tired, in need of a whole renovation, but because office demand is way down, you can take advantage of SB 6 and convert it to multifamily.
Correct, without needing to basically rezone, because that was the biggest issue before. It was a commercially zoned thing, and now it's saying like, no, you don't need to rezone it. This building is like mostly vacant. We can repurpose it. It served its purpose when it was built. Now let's repurpose it and create more housing. So 1 in 5 units, right, were ADUs. So the space is growing. And so a lot of pain points to answer your question. I feel like with it comes a lot of maybe like misinformation, and it's not misinformation that's being spread intentionally. I think it's just, and this is something I run into maybe in like 1 in 5 projects, ironically enough. I'll have to get the state involved, because even the local jurisdiction themselves, they don't understand what my ADU like rights are, or especially for my clients. And so we were talking about that a little bit earlier, but it comes down to one of those things. It's like, before going into an ADU project, make sure you are partnering with someone that understands the law, like the back of their hand. So that's probably personally, I'm a guy that believe in anything I do, that the number one solution is like preventative care. That's how I live my life. And so like, I think preventative care is like the number one solution to anything. And of course, like, you can't prevent everything, right? But with that being said, with every single project that we go through, I ensure that I have this entire long list that I rip through with the client. Okay, did we think about this? Did we think about that? Did we think about this? And it's a lot of information to cover. And so a lot of times, I see online and stuff where people try to say like, hey, no, Rich, you're entitled to 10 ADUs. And then, you might, keep that in the back of your head. And then you might make a decision based on that information. And then, oh, well, let's dissect that information. Like on paper, it says 10 ADUs, but then the lot itself, it might be completely unbuildable, et cetera.
So doing proper due diligence on the front end in terms of the highest and best use, how many units you can build, but also square footage that you can legally build before you go in and move forward on a property.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you see people actually close on a property and they didn't do proper due diligence and they just went off of someone's word and they thought, hey, I could do 10, but it turns out I can only do 3. And that's a real thing.
100%. That's
just
actually
kills the deal.
super common. We get a lot of calls with people doing basic inquiries, and it's always best when I've had deals where it's like, oh, we're literally in escrow. And so can you help us do actually a real feasibility study to tell us what's gonna happen with this? And you're now hiring me to be your consultant. So I'm gonna give you straight facts. Okay, this is actually what you can do, and I cite all my sources, etc. And if somebody tells you different, let me talk to them personally because I want to see what they're citing. Some other times it works the other way around, where someone's like, hey, I just bought this property, and I'm thinking if I can just do 2 units here, that would be great. And then do a little bit of research, and you're like, dude, we can get you 8, 10 units, etc. over here. Yes, this is a great value. So it's just, I'd say due diligence is so important in the space. And for anyone entering the space, you're becoming a developer. So you have to approach, this kind of industry that you're stepping into. You're wearing that developer hat. So you got to make sure that, your circle and the people you're getting your information from. And like I said, I can't state enough that sometimes even the people at the city that you're speaking to, and I can prove this in many projects that I've done, they themselves may not know the law. And they might tell you hey, this is what you can build. But then you do a little bit of digging and then you find out no, actually the state laws, I'm going to exercise those. And my state law says that I can build 3 units here, 4 units actually. And since ADUs, it's a ministerial process. It's not a discretionary process. That literally means that no one can stop you. If you meet these check marks, you're good. No one can say no to your project.
Got it. It's not discretionary to the individual that's signing off on it. It's hey, this is the laws. As long as you do these things, it needs to get approved.
Exactly.
I love that. And I just want to emphasize real quick, for anyone listening to this right now, if you're interested in getting into ADUs, or maybe you are actively looking at some ADU projects right now, I can't emphasize enough the importance of having someone like France on your team, someone that you can go to in the due diligence period. He's going to give you really honest, upfront, accurate opinion in terms of timeline and what you can and cannot do, what the highest and best use of the property is, so you can have proper underwriting, but also make a proper decision to whether you're going to move forward on a deal or not move forward. I personally am working on a deal right now with France in the Little Italy neighborhood where our office is located. And it's an interesting property because, most of the stuff here in downtown San Diego, especially in Little Italy, is a lot of condos, right? So a lot of HOAs or high-rise apartment buildings where you got studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. It's very uncommon to be able to pick up a single-family plot of land. And I always say the value of owning real estate is owning the land. I think buying a high-rise condo with an HOA, it technically is, owning real estate. You're a homeowner, but those condos, generally speaking, are going to appreciate in value a lot slower than the single families are, because the value is really in the land, and these HOAs put a lot of rules on, and as the HOAs go up, they always go up over time. They rarely go down. When the HOAs start creeping up into $700, $900, $1,100, some of these HOAs, like in the Pacific Gate building, are like over 2,000. It's very few individuals that are willing to buy that property. And so it really puts a ceiling in terms of like long-term appreciation. So anyways, this particular property came on the market. And I thought it was kind of unique, good location, right next to the dog park, a block off from the piazza here in Little Italy, very walkable. And, it's a neighborhood that I've lived in 8 years. I'm a big believer in it. It's gentrifying. It's got all the best restaurants, coffee shops. Anyways, that said, it's unique to find a lot here, but it was historically zoned, and it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath property that was older properties. This is like, I want to say 130 years old, historic building, mixed use zoning. And it was kind of used as like a home office. Like the seller had lived there since the 80s, and she had her law firm working upstairs. But anyhow, we picked up this property, and I went to France early and often. I was like, hey, what's the highest and best use? What can we do in the back? Because I had a lot in the back. And so we're going to do a 2-story, 2-bedroom, 2-bath suite in the back with a 3rd-story rooftop deck. And we renovated the main house already. It's operating as an Airbnb. It's doing pretty good. It's bringing in like $14,000-15,000 a month in top line, just with the single family that we renovated. And so we're going to develop the back project when we get the permits, entitlement. But because it's historic zoning, the timelines are longer. Talk a little bit about what that looks like with that particular project.
Yeah. So now actually a lot of projects, if the building's over 45 years old, the city of San Diego is now like requiring 90% of projects to go through a historic review. Ours was historically zoned. So yeah, we had to do all that. The issue that we ran with this particular project in the beginning was what we were trying to develop was, so, earlier we were talking about, your state rights, for example, for ADU. A lot of times, when people hear like, oh yeah, my lot is zoned to have, unlimited ADUs. And it's like, no, not necessarily, because, you run into an issue with every local jurisdiction. They'll have one of two things, either a lot coverage or a floor area ratio.
Okay.
And these restrictions tell you how much of the land that you can actually develop on. So lot coverage, just as the name suggests, if you have a 10,000 square foot lot and your lot coverage is at 50%, you can only build up to 5,000 square feet. And so floor area ratio, kind of same concept. You have like a, matrix of like, okay, you have a 10,000 square foot lot, your floor area ratio is like, 30%, and then this is however you want to do it, et cetera. And so the main issue that we were running with initially with the project was we were doing a by right ADU, state ADU. So like we didn't have any floor area ratio barely left on that property. But I came to you, I was like, hey, the state actually specifically states that if you're building an 800 square foot ADU, which our building is going to be 400 at the bottom, 400 at the top initially, and then like the deck was going to be like 400, as long as we have a 800 square foot unit, no one can say no to us. Even if we're above floor area, et cetera, it doesn't matter anymore to us. So we did that, and then initially we were getting pushback as, hey, well, the deck is actually going to be considered habitable space, so therefore making the unit a 1,200 square foot unit. And then, you guys were renovating the main home, so like we paused for a little bit, and then you guys were running the Airbnb. And then recently, actually, that property got moved into the downtown development, became part of the downtown development district, and our floor area ratio like literally 10x'd. So like we don't even have that issue anymore.
Oh, with the limit to 800 square feet?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
So yeah. So now we can go bigger, which I think that was the plan, depending on, we're trying to, so I'm working with the downtown development district to, okay, what does my deck need to be, my rooftop, in order for it not to count as habitable space. Like you tell me, we'll design it. You know, like you give me the parameters, etc. So that's what we're working with them on.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Now that there's no limit there, is there also a play down the road to just literally level that property and just go ground up and do a big multifamily development that's like, because the building directly next door is, I want to say, at least 5 or 6 floors up. Is there an opportunity just to level it and do like a ground up and do like 20, 24 unit multifamily deal?
100%.
There is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can, you, if you're going to do that, the downtown development district, they want you to do that.
They want you to do that.
They want you to do that.
Okay.
So they were like, "Oh, you're just doing 1 ADU?" Like I said, our floor area should like 10x.
They're like, is that the best you can
Yeah,
do?
they're like, "Dude." And I'm like, well, and you know, we were talking about bonus density, and they're like, "Oh yeah, and you can do bonus density, and you can like, how high you want to go? You want to go like 10 stories, like etc."
So
like,
question for you. We're in communication with the owner directly next door, and he's got a fourplex, and it's a lot, probably 3 times the size of ours. If we're able to, and he's interested in potentially selling here in a little bit, if we're able to buy that, could we combine both lots and do like a huge development with multifamily?
Yes.
You could.
Yes. Being in that downtown overlay district,
Okay.
their entire goal is to create development like that, and like make development like that actually like more streamlined, and make it as close to a ministerial process as possible. And so anytime you're proposing something like that, they're all in for it. Now, San Diego's very anti demolishing of existing habitable space.
Especially historic, right?
Yeah, well, especially historic.
Yeah.
But that actually creates another opportunity for you, because, and you know, this was a play I was like chatting with someone about that buys like just lots, like empty lots for future development, etc. And I'm like, hey, you know, you should go see whoever's doing like a huge development. They're like, well, can you give me any like tips or like what I can do with these lots? You know, like I want to develop on them, etc. But you know, I don't want to spend the money. I'm like, you should go online, search for the permits, see who's doing a big development project on a lot that may have like 1 or 2 units on it. You know, I know for a fact they do not want to demo those units. So you say, hey, I will pay to remove these units from your lot and I'll put them on my lot. I'll pay for all of that. So one, you're paying all their fees to remove that home from their property. So they're not fronting the bill. And matter of fact, you're saving them a huge headache for permitting, and because now they're not demoing that unit. So the permit is going to get through so much faster. And then you go in and they say, oh, we're not going to demo the unit. We're selling it to this guy for $1 or, you know, whatever it is. So that's a real thing, is actually like that developer would rather take that unit and literally give it to someone for free. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but you see it like in certain developments. There's one like literally in the heart of downtown San Diego right now. It's a huge lot. They're doing a huge development there. There was like 2 freaking random units on it, and they're right now like in the back of they're like just being jacked up. They're like ready to be shipped somewhere.
Wow.
Like God knows where.
How do they move a property like that? So like just an example, this property that we have, it's you know, about 1,100 square feet, 2-story. How do you move something like that to another neighborhood?
Just like the same
without
like
it without it completely crumbling?
Yeah, no, it's you're basically utilizing the same strategy as like the prefab units that you're moving.
Okay.
And then there's some freaking super cool companies out there that basically work with, even if you have a home that's like tilting or something like that. So they come in and they have machinery that can actually like now, before, like, you know, that home might have been toast, but they literally have these machinery that comes and like lifts the entire home from the foundation itself. And, you know, in just like a few hours, they'll take care of everything for you. So they utilize that same strategy and then like lift the entire home from underneath the foundation itself. And then I don't know too much about the rest of the logistics. They find a truck, big enough. They get a permit from the city for a right of way permit. Like, hey, we're gonna need to close the road like on this day, for like 4 hours because moving that house like to the back of this freaking truck, etc. It's like it's a mission in itself, and you'll need a few people in front of you, behind you to guide you as you take up probably majority of the street. Yeah. But it's 100% a real thing. 100%. I've seen people that have a lot that is almost worthless. And then they just, now the lot is worth so much more because they barely paid any money. And I forget who exactly, but I personally got this idea because I saw someone do it and they paid, I want to say like 20 to 30K for that house. That used to be a prefabricated house.
So where would like a Barrio Logan type of neighborhood would be good to kind of bring a property like that down to?
Yeah, if they're exactly. That area right now is really hot for development. And so, like I said, you need to approach that situation with the mindset that I'm about to alleviate a large headache for this developer because they need to get rid of this home, but they can't actually get rid of it.
Yeah.
And then you come in and you're like, hey, I'll take it off your hands.
I never knew that was a thing until we picked this property up, and then it was historic zoning. And I think that you brought it to my attention like a year ago. You're like, hey, like a property a few doors down actually was just moved. It was like a historic zone property so they could build. But question for you. So I know the last time I looked at the zoning, it was mixed use and hotel was one of the designators. Could we, if we picked up the property next door, could we theoretically do a tear down and a ground up boutique hotel development?
Potentially. I can look at it more for you. Potentially.
Okay.
Potentially.
Well, with the new zoning, I'd be interested to kind of see what this all looks like, and make sure that we're making the right move in terms of like what's going to be the highest and best use, because we do all the work to build the ADU, and then we find out later, hey, there's a higher and better use. Would have been to pick up the property next door and do a bigger development. I would rather pivot now than later, and that property's bringing in money as a short-term rental. That we don't have investors or anything like that, so there's no rush to like jump to a decision. Like let's scheme and we'll talk shop online or offline to see what the highest and best use is. But I'm down to make a run at the property next door.
Absolutely.
And maybe the property 2 doors down too.
Absolutely. You never know. Yeah, we'll talk offline for sure.
Okay.
Hey guys, happy 2025. I am so excited for the new year. If you are a busy professional and looking for passive income and tax benefits, my company, Summers Capital, has a real estate fund where we are buying boutique hotels. We do everything from sourcing the deals, renovating all the properties, and even handling all the day-to-day operations, making it truly hands-off for our investors. If you want to learn more to see if we can help you this year, go to summerscapital.com/invest to book a free call with my team. Again, it's summerscapital.com/invest to book a free call with my team. Now let's jump back into the show.
All right, so this brings me to my next thing. So let's just walk through this. So let's just say someone is listening to the podcast right now. They want to get into ADU investing stuff. In your mind, what is the ideal? Because you work with so many clients, you see all these different types of projects. In your mind, what makes a great ADU play? What kind of things should someone include in their search criteria if they're looking to buy a property and build ADUs?
That's a good question.
Yep.
It's a really good question.
Are we trying to maximize the number of units? Are we trying to do something where it's just nice and easy, get in, get out? Like, what is it? Timelines? What should they be looking at? Give us the breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. This might seem like a cop-out answer, but this is a real answer because it's very dependent on that specific space that you're in, that specific area, the jurisdiction that you're in, and what your highest and best use is for that area. And then this question also is dependent on the investor themselves. Like whether, even if it's a homeowner, they're now investors. So even then, what is the exit strategy for them? What's the ideal exit strategy for them? So I'll give you maybe a few situations, and I'll tell you like maybe the things to look for in those situations. So one, developable land. So like, obviously like you have your like huge backyard. Make sure the jurisdiction that you're in, the municipality that you're looking to do development in, is developer friendly. So anything that says City of San Diego, you're good. City of San Diego is the most developer friendly city in all of California.
So anything that has a San Diego mailing address, you're probably good.
Yes.
Okay.
And then a good strategy that's like not being utilized enough is like actually probably like if I can put people on game right now.
Yeah. Put them on the game.
Okay. So this free game right here.
Okay.
So what you're going to want to look for is any property that has a large lot, probably City of San Diego. It would be ideal, but even if it's not City of San Diego, it can still work as long as you're partnering with someone who's very knowledgeable. And make sure that lot has, if it's a single family home, make sure the single family home is under 1,200 square feet. Okay.
Why?
Good question. Because what you're going to then do is, since technically that lot had the, single family home already on the lot, but since that single family home is under 1,200 square feet, what you're going to come in and do, and then let's say, when we were talking about earlier, price per square foot, right? Let's say the price on that lot, technically the price per square foot that the bank is fronting you this loan on is like $1,000 price per square foot. Okay, bank, I see you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that unit my ADU. Okay?
So smart.
Since it's under 1,200 square feet. And then I'm going to utilize SB9 and I'm going to go build 2 large single family homes in the freaking back of my property. And I can make those homes like, 2,500 square foot each. Now, when the bank goes to, reappraise the value of the property, now they're not appraising 2 large ADUs that I built in the back. They're appraising it as like 2 single family homes that I built in the back. And before they've already said that they were cool with me purchasing this property at $1,000 per square foot type of situation. And actually situations like that, you can develop a lot more, and especially if you're in the city of San Diego. But I think that's like if you want to say you hit the jackpot, you find a large lot, anything close to like 10,000 square feet that's a lot of actually in the city of San Diego. So like 10,000 square foot lot plus, and then the main home is under 1,200 square feet. Yeah, you've hit the jackpot. You can develop so much on that.
That's so smart. So in that example that we were just looking at before we started recording, single family home, less than 1,200 square feet, relatively large lot in the back. Would there still be a cap in terms of like how much square footage you could build, assuming you're going to just build a couple massive single families out back there?
Yes,
there would be a cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would still need to conform to the floor area ratio for that specific zone. But like I said, City of San Diego is very developer friendly. So
what is floor area ratio?
Floor area ratio is just the amount of square footage for the lot, the percentage of the square footage of actual developable, space. So anything that's habitable space takes away from that.
Okay.
And
what is SB9?
So SB9 was a bill that came as like a continuation bill of what the ADU bill was trying to do. And then so you can combine both of them together to maximize development in single family homes. Because just having a single family home and a single ADU, and if you have a 20,000 square foot property lot, there's still a lot of developable area in that lot. So SB9 was created, to help even, put a dent in this housing crisis of like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to allow people to have a secondary single family home on the same lot. as well as having another ADU. And so you can then potentially tap into SB9, have 2 single family homes on the property. And then the new ADU legislation says, well, that's technically multifamily now. So you're able to match the existing housing that you're proposing on the property for main dwelling units. And so then now that puts you into a category where you can develop 2 ADUs, where before you could have only developed like 1 detached ADU, where now you can develop 2 detached ADUs as well as the other single family home. And then SB9 also creates a pathway for owner occupied residences with large enough lots and, meeting certain access criteria to easily do a lot split on a lot. So then you potentially can end up with a situation where you have a single family home on a lot, and the homeowner can now utilize SB9 in its 2 components, which is they split the lot, they build they end up with on 1 lot 2 single family homes, 2 ADUs. That's 4 units. And then on the new lot, they also build 2 more single family homes and 2 ADUs. So then now they turn this single parcel into an 8-unit dual parcel.
Okay, and when you split the lot, let's just say for simple math, you got a single family home on a larger lot. It's got a large backyard, and you want to build another single family home in the backyard, and then you want to split the lot. And can you sell off that other parcel?
Yes.
Okay, and so with this second single family home, I imagine it's hard to have like a parking, like any sort of garage, correct?
No,
Because it's in
you
the
can.
backyard. How do people structure the parking
Well,
situation in that scenario?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I briefly mentioned you have to meet access criteria. So yeah, if you're in a situation where there's the back of your home is built in a way, and you want to avoid this for a lot of developments. Actually, you do not want to end up with a development where the home is dab smack in the middle of the lot. You want it to be as close to the front as possible. And then actually, if it's off to the side, that's better. You've hit the jackpot. You want the exit towards your large backyard, the entry and the exit point, to be as big as possible.
So you can have basically a driveway.
That's correct.
And you could split the lot next to the driveway.
Yeah, correct.
And then the driveway goes to the back, and then you have your own garage back there.
Correct. So it's called a flag lot split.
Got it.
Because you make a little flag, and so the necessary entry and exit point needs to be 20 feet.
20 feet from side to side?
From side to side.
In order to legally split it?
Correct.
And so let me ask you this question. If you don't have the 20 feet and there's no way to add the driveway and the parking, can you still split it and build a single family house?
No.
Okay, so you need that.
So but you'll be able to just develop it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so is there potential here to, if the lot's big enough, to do 3 single families total? So you have the existing, you build 2 more, and then split it into 3 lots?
No.
If the lot's big enough, you can't?
No. The SB9 specifically only lets you split it once. And if the lot has been split before, then you don't get to split it again.
Okay. That's really good to know. So this is a big play for anyone out there, investing in real estate. You can essentially pick up a single family property on a large lot, as long as you get the 20 feet width on the side to do the flag split that you're alluding to build out, split the lot, sell that portion, and then you might have the existing free and clear.
100%. There's a lot of homeowners right now that are, close to that retirement age. And it's they understand that, they understand that the, current asset that they have, and which is their home and the appreciation and everything. Okay. Yeah. You don't have to then move from your home or anything like that. Yeah. You just sell off the back, you hire someone to help you get it legally split. And then you can go and sell that to a developer. And then
Dude, that makes so much sense. So someone's, approaching retirement years, they owe $1 million on their mortgage. They're like, hey, we're ready to retire. We want to just pay off our home. Let's just split this lot and sell it to a developer. And then boom, they pay off their mortgage and now they can retire. That's a big play.
It's a huge play.
Wow.
It's a play that doesn't get talked about enough.
And so there's a lot of investors and developers targeting like mom and pops that don't even have an idea that this is a potential. And they're basically going to them saying, hey, we can take this land that you're not even using. I'll buy it from you. You guys can use this money to pay your mortgage off or carry you through your retirement years. Are you interested?
100%.
Damn. Okay. This is really
Yeah.
cool.
So
man.
instead of just asking the homeowner like, hey, are you interested in selling? It's like, hey, okay. I know you said you're not interested in selling your home, but how do you feel about your large lot, your 20,000 square foot lot? What if I was to take half of it? So it has to be as close to a 50-50 as possible. Like you can do 40-60. And you say, hey, I mean, you can keep 60%. I just want the back 40%. And then, yeah, they legally sign an affidavit saying they'll live somewhere on the property for at least 3 years. And so, yeah, if you run into a situation where you as an investor, as an agent, whatever it is, and you get that initial no from the homeowner, like, hey, no, we're gonna die in our home. Perfect. Like,
Perfect.
yeah. Like, what can I offer you another solution?
Mhm.
And because it's kind of crazy to just have that single family home on a 20,000 square foot lot like that exists. That's so common. And, just to have that empty dead space, like they themselves don't even need that. And it's like, you look at the back of the lot and it's always like maybe filled with junk and et cetera and kept, brush and, and it's just like, hey, like, let's tap into something that, you may not be aware of. If you have like 15 minutes of your time, I can explain to you the situation. I will cover all the costs that come with obtaining the permit to do the legal lot split. And then I'll buy the back from you.
How do you find a lot, let's say, closer to the water? And I do see lots that are like, or maybe it's an existing property that has the entitlement and has the permitting, and then they go to resell the property before they actually do the build out. Those properties seem to come with a premium, right? As an investor out there, obviously it cuts down on timeline, but are investors that are buying those types of projects that already have the entitlement, they're shovel ready, they're obviously paying a premium. Is that not the right play for an investor out there? Because I do see those transactions happening. Are they typically win-win transactions, or do you think that the person that bought the land, went through the permitting, the entitlement, those are typically the people that are making out?
I would say, yeah, the latter.
The latter.
Yeah, the people that buy the land and then do everything themselves, those are the people that are typically making out. Like, they're just because someone can, and just because you yourself can, doesn't mean you should.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when I see people selling a property, hey, we already got the permits, etc. And then a part of this, there's so many moving parts. So for example, just to say it on air, when we were talking about, for example, like utilities, and what was one specifically, an easy one is like water line, and then checking the water line for an area and then seeing what the water line size is. So if anyone's listening to this and you want to find out what your water line size is, every 99% of water bills, somewhere it'll say your water meter, and it'll say the size. It'll say like 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, etc.
It says it on the water bill.
Yes.
I didn't have any. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. And so that's really important, because then the previous person before you, they may, you to obtain your permits, these are my rights, et cetera, et cetera. And then towards the end, when you're in issuance, then the city says, oh, okay, well, go get a clearance letter from the water district. And you go to the water district, and then they do a fixture count. And then they say, oh, okay, well, you currently have a 3/4 inch line. You'll need to upgrade, to a 1 inch line, let's say. And then the price, and then you get the freaking bill for it. And it's like, which you don't have to pay until you start doing it. And so you might be buying a development project with a nasty surprise for you, waiting for you.
Yeah. How much are
And
those water lines typically to replace, to resize?
to upgrade? Oh, dude, yeah. Like honestly, shout out to Brad. We were just talking about Brad.
Mm-hmm.
Brad Rice.
Love Brad Rice.
Yeah,
Let's go, Brad.
we just for his project we had to upsize it, and then they messed up because we actually didn't need to, but then they said, like, they even told us, like, we did our due diligence, like, hey, like, we want to make sure that we're doing the calculations correctly, and they said, yeah, 100%, like, you're good, you're not going to need to upsize. And then towards the end of the project, hey, we messed up the calculation, you need to upsize. And so for that particular project, they worked with us on the deal where they said, okay, it's only going to be 8,000. And I'm like to Brad, I'm like, dude, just pay it. Like, I'll fight it for you at the HCD because they did tell us we didn't need it, but like 8,000, that was the cheapest I've ever seen it. So typically you're looking at minimum like 30,000, and then you can go up from there depending on what you're upgrading to. But like 30 to, and some water districts that are like privately owned in a way, but they're like not for profit, but they're totally like just making up crazy fees. So it can be like 30 it can go up from there. 30 to 80 is like typically where you're going to be at.
And just so I'm clear, the water line should be minimum what size if you don't need to replace it?
Okay, so this is going back to my free game earlier about buying that big lot with a small home, because typically the smaller the home, the smaller the water line. So a good size for if you're doing a single family home, a good size water line is 3/4 inch. So you can on a 3/4 inch, you can have like 3 units on that 3/4 inch line without needing an upgrade. And not only, as we mentioned earlier, like not only do you save the money on the permits, acquiring the permit itself by, not upgrading the water line, but you save a lot of time and permit coordination with the utility company and how, et cetera, et cetera. So you save yourself carrying costs as well with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so make sure it's at least 3/4 inches is the game that you're putting out there for the listeners.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. So let's say you buy the property, you get the permits, you get the entitlement, now you're ready for build out. I do notice, we just talked about it briefly, I do notice a lot of investors will throw the listing up on like, the MLS and LoopNet and kind of see if they'll just throw a crazy number out there and see if they get any offers. That seems like a risk-free proposition. If your plan is to develop an exit, why not just throw a number out there and see if anyone's willing to pay a premium to get in there and have something that's shovel ready so they can just go ahead and develop?
For sure. I think
throw it on there for 30 days, right?
Yeah.
See what happens?
Absolutely. Like it's a win-win. I actually have an existing project right now that we're entering issuance. They're going to develop it no matter what. But then they're telling me like, hey, if you have any investors, it's going to end up being 6 units total on this property, and like near Encanto. And they're like, hey, if you have any investors that want to get this project, this is what our asking price is. And actually I think it's like a pretty competitive price. So yeah. And in situations like that, like it can for sure be a win-win situation.
Is that the one that you were telling me about in the Point Loma area?
No, this one is in Encanto.
Okay, a little bit.
Yeah, the Point Loma one is that's a different one.
Yeah,
that's going to be a whole new project.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then talk about the coastal commissioner. So this is across all of California, not just San Diego, correct? So LA, Malibu, all those homes that just burnt down in Malibu and the beach, that's in the coastal commissioner zone, right? So all these permitting there. What is the California Coastal Commissioner? Or is it commission or commissioner? Commission. What is the California Coastal Commission? And is that just an extra wrinkle that you got to go through in terms of permitting?
Correct. Yes. And it depending on the jurisdiction, again, it can be a huge wrinkle. And so basically when there's the, I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's called the Coastal Commission, the Coast. I think it just might be the Coastal Zone Act of 1976. I know that I know the year for sure. So funny enough, when the ADU legislation was being passed, there's like a line in there, and it says that nothing in this ADU bill basically is intended to supersede the Coastal Commission Act of like 1976 or something like that. And so, and it means what it says, which is the Coastal Commission has a lot of power, and the power it can be to like literally completely say no to your project. And so, yeah, when someone's like, no, I'm entitled to an ADU, like no matter what, I heard like, okay, you're in this coastal zone, and no. And so a lot of times what they do is they create like just extra regulation because you do that entire coastal commission act of like 1976 was created to help protect that coastline from like large infill development projects. And a lot of times, like 9 times out of 10 in any coastal zone that you're in, they're really sensitive about parking. And it's like, hey man, you can't just throw up like a 3-bedroom unit. That's 3 people that are going to be living in there, like at least 2 drivers. That's 2 extra cars on this like small street, etc. So they do a lot of like parking regulations. They have pretty strict setbacks. They do not want your unit to be so close to your neighbor's unit where you're like invading their privacy, blocking this, so they have like, stricter setbacks. And then your overall like floor area ratio in certain situations like that, it's pretty low compared to regular. And so on top of getting the permit from your local jurisdiction, let's say you're in City of San Diego, you also have to get a coastal permit from the Coastal Commission itself. So it adds a little bit of time and a little bit of cost to your project. So it's very like project specific. And so, you can, City of San Diego Coastal Commission is like, they also understand like development is needed. So they're not as strict as they used to be. And then, in certain areas like the plague might just be, you just do 1 unit under 500 square feet. You'll automatically absolve yourself from like 99% of fees altogether. Like you now don't have to pay like crazy school fees, any development impact fees, park fees, etc. Like you're exempt from all of those. And then you save yourself about like 20K in fees maybe. And then you have your unit, and it's just like under a certain size, it's like pretty easy process to get through.
Okay, so how do I find a project coastally here in San Diego, something that's got a view of the ocean or on the ocean, right? And likely going to be in the coastal commission zone. How do I find a project like that to where I can develop like either a good sized multifamily property, 16, 20, 24 units, or develop like a ground up boutique hotel and do like a really rad experience, but totally ground up with a good view of the water in a great location? How do I find a property like that? And is that just a risk that I'm going to have to buy the property and go through the entitlement with a big question mark if I can even do it or not?
No, you can definitely strategize for that prior to.
Okay.
So
that's the stuff that gets me excited.
Okay. Yeah. So that thing you can definitely. So what we would do is you would have to sit down with someone who's really not like myself, humbly speaking. Like
you are the top G.
I appreciate it. Someone who's really knowledgeable regarding zoning for that specific area, and then your like development entitlements for that specific area. And then what then you can do is like I can literally help create a map for you. And there are a few software. I can't remember the name. Oh, so there are certain like software programs that exist where I can then draw a boundary, create my own like little subdivision map, and then from that map, I can then filter it to say like, okay, well, just don't, so every lot in here has a lot of potential, but maybe considering the floor area ratio for the specific area, et cetera, my lot has to be at a minimum, let's say like 9,000 square feet. Okay. So then you can then define the scope. Okay, I'm only looking for lots that are above 9,000 square feet. So then you do, a filter like that, and then it lists all those properties to you. And then, okay, I'm not interested in any properties that, then, so you work with someone who's like really knowledgeable. We find out what your end goal is. Like, hey, for this property to make sense, like for this specific area, the property values are so high, in order to recoup my costs and then, make a little bit of money, I would have to end up with 4 units. And then I can create for you like 100%. Okay, this is what we're going to look for. This is the area we're going to look for. We're going to look for anything that's zoned this specific thing. And then, we just highlight those properties. The lot size has to also match up with what we're doing. And then at that point, which is the hardest part, is, getting the okay from the existing owner to sell. And then you just hit those people up like, hey, I'm trying to do this is what I'm trying to do, et cetera, et cetera. Like, have you considered selling it,
Is it possible to find vacant land in those areas that just hasn't been developed yet for whatever reason?
Possibly. Yeah, that's very possible. And I only say that just because I am so busy. Like I personally have never taken the time to like go and search for them, but I'm sure there is somewhere someone's sitting on land, vacant land.
But
Okay.
those folks, I imagine, if they're sitting on a vacant piece of land that's in a great area, they're going to charge a premium because they probably know, hey, a lot of developers want this piece of land to develop, right? So you might not necessarily get the best deal as well.
Yeah. And
I can imagine.
And
you might get a better deal going to an existing home owner that's looking to retire. They got an old tired property and just picking that up and just leveling it.
Yes, or like getting rid of the home, Yeah, 100%. I'd recommend the latter, because actually a lot of times when it comes to vacant land, it's probably vacant for a reason. And a lot of people don't know this.
Because the seller wants some crazy number?
Well, and it's because maybe like before, like if it's been vacant for a lot, like its use was when the city, let's say, was, building the infrastructure to, provide like, water and electricity for that area, et cetera. They're like, oh, this is just going to be a freaking stupid parking lot. Like, it doesn't need that. Let's save some costs. And like, this thing is not entitled to any water rights. So I have some people sometimes like, hey, I just bought this land, I'm trying to develop it, et cetera. And I'm like, dude, I just did like, 2 days worth of research, and I found out like you don't have any freaking water rights. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, the city is not gonna, like, literally, you do not have water. Like,
And there's nothing you could do about that.
Well, what you would then have to do is like so basically you don't have a lateral like coming into your property, and then the city's not going to do it for you. Or if they're going to do it for you, it's going to be just that fee alone to bring it to your front, like part of the property that, you're looking at like $60,000+. But a lot of times they'll tell you like, you don't actually have any water rights. And so what you'd have to do at that point is like find an existing lateral somewhere, like one of your neighbors, and you say, hey, can I pay to like, one, I'm going to have to upgrade the main that's already existing there, because now we're just upgrading the size. Can I somehow convince you to let me upgrade your main and then split off your lateral to come into my property, etc.? And you're basically then at the mercy of your neighbors. So that's like a large issue that like actually a lot of people don't even take into consideration, is like, do you have rights to water and electricity? And then even electricity, they might, like, the electric company might say, no, yeah, we'll give you electricity. However, you're going to need to go ahead and pay for the entire upgrade. I don't know if you've seen it happen. ever, like in real life. But then like a development will go up like nearby, but in order for that development to have gotten the okay, they had to do offsite improvements and pay for this like new electric tower that can like freaking supply the entire neighborhood as well as your new proposed homes. And then that in itself, you're like 120 to 200K in just like getting that electrical upgrade put into that. So things like that. So sometimes the people that are sitting on this lot in this like really coveted area, they think it's like, oh, dude, I have the best lot. And then, yeah, you do a little bit of research and then you say like, hey, like, yeah, the area is still very nice, but you have some major challenges ahead of you that you may not even have access to water.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy.
so that's probably why it's sitting vacant, because the savvy developers
Already passed on it.
already passed on it. They're
Yeah.
like, dude, I've done this before. I never want to go through that again, and I'm
Yeah.
going to pass on this. Yeah.
That's funny, man.
And then at that point too, when it becomes a hurdle like that, then you get into a situation where you are being forced to limit the amount of development that you can have on the property.
That's really good, man. And I feel like often, you'll see, opportunities in whatever asset class. It's not just development, but different asset classes. There's opportunities, and people will see these opportunities and think, "Oh my gosh, what this could be." But it's like in all reality, some of these opportunities, especially the ones that are on the market, LoopNet, their own Crexy, it's like a lot of these opportunities have already been picked through by all the experienced investors and passed on. And there's a reason why it's sitting here on LoopNet now for 180 days. Right?
Yeah.
And so
Does it show you the views, the view count by chance? Like how many people
Yeah.
looked at the deal or no?
Yeah, like 21,000 people have viewed this deal, and 21,000 people have passed on this deal for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyhow, okay, so that's all really good stuff right there, man. I got a question.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I know some people individually. Preston Dumerville, a good friend of mine, him and his father developed spec homes in Rancho Santa Fe. So talk a little bit about like what that looks like versus the ADU stuff. So it's definitely a little bit different play when we're talking about the luxury market and you're looking to exit some larger, high net worth individual who's looking for a primary residence. But do you think the profit margins are bigger in something like that versus some of these ADU build outs?
I can't speak on that market too much because I personally like haven't done the proper research into that space.
That's fair.
But I know a lot of people that are in that space, and they're probably in that space for a reason. And I do work with clients that are, as the community refers to them as like flippers, for example. There's they take a home. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna remodel. You actually referred to me a client where they were taking a home. Here's what we want to do. We want to expand it, make it more luxury. It's only like a 1,200 square foot home. We're gonna make it a 2,000 square foot home, etc. Get easily added value there. And then yeah, sure enough, like you see the comps in the area for like a home that used to be like just a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and now you're turning it into a 2,000 plus square foot, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, etc. And then the comps like just shoot up drastically for that specific area. So yeah, I think it all depends on the person's goal, but and specific to that specific location and their strategy, etc. I think you can win both sides. But ADUs, it goes beyond just to me, the reason why I'm passionate about ADUs so much is you're literally just creating this additional independent living space. Like someone has to live there. So you're creating inventory for someone to live there. And that to me is what I'm passionate about, is like, helping create a dent into this like super large problem. And at the basic level, it's important to touch on this subject is, you see people constantly like bickering with each other in terms of like, their favorite, like legislators and parties and, et cetera. And, you get that, quarrel and all of this. And a lot of times, let's say, you're the governor of California, and then you can put forth the most sound legislation possible, regardless of like, party, denomination, whatever it is, right? You can put forth the most sound legislation as you possibly can. Okay. Now, your legislation, that specific bill, is only going to be as successful as the market, the people, the boots on the ground, and how successful they are in adopting this.
Yes.
And so I legitimately, when I got involved in this space, because I only got involved in this space because I was going into politics. And then I said, I can actually, and then I got involved in the like housing issues and stuff. And then I saw the ADU legislation come about, and I thought it was super fascinating. And then I said, and I went to an ADU event randomly that popped. I'm like, let me go because I want to survey the boots on the ground. I want to see how these people are taking this like really creative legislation that's like, going around these like restrictive zoning laws to create more housing. How are they, how good of a job are they doing? And I went and I was like not impressed with like 90% of them said, no, that's not what this means, man. And so to me, I truly approach every day what I do from that mindset that what I do is so important because I'm the boots on the ground, and the legislators are working hard to get these like, super pro development bills passed. And I'm the boots on the ground making sure that this information is being passed accurately. And I promise you, you can talk to any single one of our clients. We have 100% client satisfaction rate, because throughout, from the very initial discovery call that we do with the client till the project sign off to project completion, we're consistently educating the client throughout the entire process. Like, here's why we're doing this. Here's what's happening here. Here's all of that. And so that was a long-winded explanation of, to me, this is why like ADU projects are so dear to me, because you're literally just creating an independent living facility that another human being will need to occupy, and you're doing your part and you're helping on a larger scale put a hole in this like huge problem that we have with housing in California.
France, love everything you're doing, man. Big fan of everything you're doing. Obviously, of course, excited to continue doing more projects with you. Where can the listeners get in touch with you if they want to learn more and potentially use you from some of their ADU projects?
Thank you for that. I appreciate the kind words. I love everything you're doing also.
Appreciate you, bro.
If you need to get a hold of us for anything ADU related, if you just have a general question, or you need us to do a feasibility for a property you own or a property you're looking to own, etc., you can get in touch with us at aduwonders.com. You can give us a call at 619-900-4499. You can reach us on Instagram. If TikTok is not banned, you can hit us up on TikTok also at aduwonders. And so, yeah, if you're wondering what you can do for any particular project, feel free to hit us up, and you'll see by that initial consultation, we know what we're doing.
There it is. He's France Hanna, always dropping ADU game. I'm Rich Summers. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.